But you talk to someone in cybersecurity, or you talk to someone in AI, and you're like, I'm a little afraid of this. And we were like, yeah, you have no idea. That should be a signal to everyone that there's something deeper going on. These AI models are unpredictable.
Welcome to For Humanity, an AI Risk podcast. This is episode number 71, AI Risk Champion Found. I'm John Sherman, your host and president of the AI Risk Network. On this network and channel, our mission is to make AI extinction risk kitchen table conversation on every street in America. If you believe in that mission, I need you to subscribe and also hit that little alarm bell next to it so you get an alert every time a new video comes out. So polls show that 60 to 80% of the public thinks that making AI models that are smarter than humans is a really bad idea. But you could count on one hand the number of elected leaders at any level who are championing the cause of AI extinction risk reduction. You're going to meet one of them right now. New York State Assemblyman Alex Boris is a sponsor of the RAISE Act, an AI safety bill currently sitting on the governor of New York's desk for signing. California made a huge step forward recently with the passage of Senate Bill 53 and the governor signing that. New York is up next. And as Alex tells us, there are many other states lining up to follow suit. With a federal administration that recently called AI risk concern catastrophism, it may well be up to the states. They will have the best chance, quite possibly, of making the laws we need to protect our families from runaway AI development. Assemblymember Alex Boris, welcome to For Humanity. Really excited to have this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one of the most frustrating things in the absolute planet of Earth for me currently is that AI concern in polling, the concern that regular people show about making systems that are smarter than humans is like 70 to 80% of the people are like, this probably isn't a good idea. But there are very few political champions of this cause. So I am thrilled to meet you because I consider you one of them. So you are one of the sponsors of the RAISE Act in New York, which is a super important AI safety law. But let's just start. You're just living your life as an assembly member, and tell me how AI risk came across your radar. And I'm really interested in how you are processing it differently than so many of your peers.
Well, I appreciate that. And I will say I'm processing it less differently than perhaps a year or two ago. I do think momentum is building, but a well-kept secret about elected officials is that we're actually human beings. And what I mean by that is, like, we all brought our own experiences to the job. And so for me, I worked in tech my entire career before running for office. I also, when I was elected in 2022, I became the first person in my party elected with a degree in computer science anywhere in the state of New York ever. And so
Wow.
I had some background in AI and in technology, obviously. And so these issues were ones I was thinking about and tracking, and I've done a number of bills around the tech industry and how technology is used both in government and outside government, sometimes to put guardrails on it, sometimes to encourage its use. There's times where it's really useful and actually government's behind the eight ball in deploying it to help people. But what I saw was that the federal government was not taking any action here. There wasn't a path for the federal government to take action. And so decided that, we had to do something here in New York.
Excellent. And so, there's a lot of different risks of AI, right? There are a lot of different things that we are concerned about. But the AI Risk Network here in this show For Humanity is particularly concerned about what I consider to be the gravest of all, which is the risk of human extinction. So, there are very few politicians who are willing to say sort of bold things about human extinction. But, I'll just ask you, what is your opinion? Do you believe that artificial intelligence is a grave threat to kill everyone who is living on this planet right now?
So in 2023, you had a number of AI experts sign an international statement saying that AI should be treated as this grave existential risk, along with risk of nuclear war, or climate change, or pandemics. And to say that something is a risk is not to say it is definitely going to happen, although I know many in this community who think, they're P-dooms 99%. But when you're thinking about something that catastrophic at the end of human life, like even a small percentage change is one that is something worth looking at. And you mentioned earlier how colleagues look at this, et cetera. I would walk people through. I'd say, listen, even before you take a stance on what you think the risk is or not, when you survey AI researchers, right, the median estimate is a 10% risk of extinction. And that's a few years ago. It might be higher now.
Yeah.
So if the people building it think there's a 10% risk, okay, it means it's probably not going to happen. And in fact, if you're out there saying it is going to happen, 9 out of 10 times you're wrong, and the 10th time no one's around for you to say you were right.
Yep.
But when you're talking about the risk of human extinction, you should probably take that a little seriously. I don't like double-digit percentages or even single-digit percentages. So yes, I do think, it is a thing government needs to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And why is it so rare? Why are you so rare? I've been in senators' offices. I've been in congressional offices, and I've been like, so what do you guys think about AI risk? And they're like, oh, we're working on deep fakes and this and that, and it's like, okay, guys, but
deep fakes are real problems, discrimination are real problems, all these. But yes, there's also other big problems. No, I think it's because human beings think linearly, and we think that the future will be the same as the past, and it's tough to imagine extremely disjointed experiences like what could come about from AI. That's just kind of human nature and our heuristics and how we evolved to think. And so, try telling people, put aside the extinction risk or not, like saying, hey, these models are going to be 1,000 times more capable in 2 years. Like, this is an exponential growth curve in what's going on.
Yes.
People can't even comprehend that. And so it's not really in our nature to spot incredibly large changes. And it's not also how like most issues that government deals with engage. It's 1% here, it's 5% here, right? Something that is a difference completely in kind is just a new way of thinking.
Totally. And there's a way that laws are made where, you sort of deal with the low-hanging fruit first, and an issue maybe will be dealt with over a decade, and you get the easy stuff, and then you get the medium stuff, and then you get to the harder stuff. But just the timelines with this do not allow for that sort of traditional legislative process to take place. I've said to a congressional staffer one time, I was like, I know you're like juggling like, a lot of apples and oranges, and we're literally throwing a flaming basketball at you. But like, that's what it is. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't set it on fire. I don't want it to be on fire. I don't want it to be a basketball, but here it comes.
Yeah. It's the other thing I would point out is the incentives of any elected official are to be on the right side of an issue. When you're talking, when the downside is when there is a low chance of something happening, and that thing happening is like the end of civilization as we know it, or literal extinction, right? Like, you're not going to get a chance to say I was right there. Not that people are doing like a cynical calculus in their head, but just it's much easier to go with the flow of where popular opinion is or what the most likely thing is, et cetera. And you would need strong evidence to move off of it. And the other thing I would say to give many of my colleagues a little bit of slack is that to your balancing apples and oranges, like so many things are thrown out, any legislature. And we have to deal with so many issues. In New York, we vote on 1,000 bills a year.
Yeah.
Literally, not like, 1,000, like literally, I think this year was 996. And so, and you have to analyze all of these different issues and things that, for me, I have a background in technology and AI. None of my colleagues do. And so, at least in AI, there are some technologists. And so, okay, if I'm given each topic 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and then trying to talk to an expert about it, it's to really build up this change in mindset. I think you can't do it in snippets. And it's why it's so useful to have, honestly, like forums like this and others that can have more long-form discussions that people can pick up and understand, okay, what is the actual argument here and what should government be doing about it?
Yeah. And I think your tech background is so interesting because research shows, polling shows, there's like a direct correlation between the more you know about tech and the more concerned you are about AI extinction.
And that's something people should pick up on, right? I think it's AI and cybersecurity are like the two realms where that's true, right? Like if you were to ask the average person who's like afraid of heights, but like talks to someone who builds bridges, right? They're going to be like, I understand, but like, here's why the bridge is perfectly safe. It is not falling down. Or like someone who's afraid of flying and you were to speak to an airospace engineer and they'd be like, cool, but like, here's why this plane is not falling out of the sky, right? But you talk to someone in cybersecurity, or you talk to someone in AI and you're like, I'm a little afraid of this. And we were like, yeah, you have no idea. And that should be a signal to everyone that there's something deeper going on.
Yes, absolutely. So let me just walk you through sort of how I explain AI risk to people, and I'll bounce it off you, and then I'll show you how it sort of relates to you, because I get to the solution. So what I say to people is like, listen, there's 3 things you need to know about AI risk. Number 1, the makers of these models openly admit that their work has the near-term future potential to kill us all.
Yep.
Just like you said, the case statement from May of 2023, they all signed it. It says they're making nuclear bombs in pandemic.
Yep.
So, that's off the table. There's no conversation like that's not real. That's real. Number 2, they have no idea how to control these models, and they don't even understand how they work. Number 3, they spend all their time and money making them stronger, not safer. So we are at an inflection point in the history of humanity and life on this earth where we have a short period of time to make a different course, or we are going to move into this default course that we don't want to be on. So then I move into my next 3 things. I say we need 3 things. Number 1, domestic regulation. And that, sir, is where you come in. We'll get to the other 2 in a minute. So I always leave it sort of like nebulous, like domestic regulation, tech people will figure out what exactly that looks like. You have an actual bill with actual real, parameters in it. And so tell us about the RAISE Act. Tell us sort of where it fits into the landscape. We had the California SB 1047 vetoed by Governor Newsom. Then SB 53 just passed, the first, I believe, AI safety law like in the history of the country.
Yep, absolutely.
And you are gunning for number 2 here with the RAISE Act. So, tell me all about it.
Yeah, and this is a great example of states building off of each other. And I bring that up because often you'll have pushback from industry that says this should happen at the federal level, not at the state level. And frankly, I agree. It should happen at the federal level, but it wasn't. And in the absence of that, states can collaborate. And so Scott Wiener and I and legislators in 7 states were actually talking about what was going on and trying to align our bills as much as can be done in each political environment. But, the idea for the RAISE Act, I started working on that before 1047 was vetoed, right? Scott Wiener really took the lead by putting that out there as the first proposal and seeing it making progress and realizing sometimes, it's the most important thing is to get through the first state. But then it's very important to get something through a second state because, for example, you look at Colorado, which passed an AI regulatory bill. And then there was a multi-state working group of 30 different states that were going to try to pass nearly the exact same bill. Virginia passed a different version of it, but of the same ilk. That was vetoed. Connecticut got far, it didn't pass. And then it didn't really move in any other state. And now Colorado had an emergency session, mostly about the budget. But one of the things they did was delay implementation of their AI law. So I bring that up as an example of if you just have it in one state, it's very easy to walk back. So I saw 1047 moving forward, and I thought, okay, we're going to need something similar in New York to really sort of establish a nationwide perspective here. And I went through 1047, looked at all the feedback, made my own changes to what I thought, should be in there or not. And then by August of 2024, I sent a draft around to all of the major labs. I said, here's what I'm thinking of introducing, would love feedback. Got red lines on it, made more changes, sent around another.
And these are these labs, the labs, just real quick, these labs who have been saying regulate us. And then every time someone's like, oh, actually, here's an actual regulation. They're like, oh, no, not that one. They're some other one.
Let's actually spend a little bit of time on that point, and then I'll go back to the basics of the RAISE Act. These labs are not monolithic. And so you have leaders who are broadly saying, hey, regulate us. Then you have the people who work at these labs. Many of them are the biggest supporters of regulation. They went into the labs thinking that would get them closer to safety and can make a change that way. Then you have the local lobbyists, the ones who are focused on a specific state, maybe a region. They've really developed relationships with individual legislators, and they can actually, I find, get into the details of the bill. Like, I got really specific, helpful red lines from many of the labs. I also got red lines that were silly and going against the point of the bill, but there were a lot of things that were just like improving it and clarifying it. And then you have the like national or global heads of policy at many of these labs. And that has actually been the most difficult layer to interact with. I've become friends with a lot of them, so I don't mean to impugn any of the individuals, but they might have an overall directive of like no state-based regulation. And so I felt like I made a lot of progress with the local lobbyists and got really good red lines that honestly improved the bill. From August, from December, I introduced it in March. I made more amendments in May and then more in June, and finally it passed. But right around that May to June time, when the bill was making a lot of progress, is when all of a sudden the national policy folks started noticing and started saying, wait, we don't support anything at the state level. We need to totally kill this. Like, we can't engage in any way. And that became quite frustrating. But I don't want to say, like, I guess the labs as a whole are many different people, and their incentives are very different. And we should remember that in our engagement with them, because it enables you to make a lot more progress and honestly find a lot more common ground than one would expect. Now, that still means you're going to have to disagree and fight, and I did that plenty on the RAISE Act. But actually engaging with them made the bill stronger and honestly probably more likely to eventually succeed.
And do you have these AI companies supporting the RAISE Act themselves?
No.
Is it
no?
So
no AI company has come out.
Right.
No, none of the major labs, I should say, have come out in support of the RAISE Act. Now, I have a bunch of VCs that support it. Obviously, a lot of VCs oppose it. I have a bunch of startups that support it. And then, of course, I have a bunch of like industry academics and experts, like AI experts, like Bengio, Jeffrey Hinton. They co-led a letter with 40 academics who work in and around AI saying how much the RAISE Act was needed. So it has a lot of broad support. None of the major labs have come out in support yet, but they still have time. Anyway, I've gotten way off tangent from what the bill actually does, and happy to describe that.
Okay,
as useful. Cool. So, so the RAISE Act is similar to SB 53 with, I think, a few additional steps in it, but it basically requires that frontier AI labs have a safety plan that has a reasonable chance of reducing catastrophic risk, that they publicly disclose critical safety incidents, and we specifically define in the bill what those are, and that if their own tests show that a model has an unreasonable risk of producing catastrophic harm, that they shouldn't release that model. That's the basics of it.
Amazing. And I'm struck by the language of like reasonable and the sort of like, cause man, I think there's, you went through three things and I'm like, nope, strike, you're out. Nope, strike, you're out. Nope, strike, you're out. I don't find the current levels of safety to be reasonable, when we have unaligned models conspiring with teenagers to help them kill themselves. We have, Mecha Hitler out here. We have, it keeps coming up again and again and again. These things are not aligned with us, dude. They don't do what we want.
Yeah. And I think that's a definitely solid argument to make and a popular argument to make. For this bill, we were really focused on the most extreme risks, the most catastrophic harms, right? Not the current harms that we are seeing.
Yeah.
And so we define the catastrophic harms as killing 100 people or $1 billion in damage via making a chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear weapon, CBRN risk, or committing an action that would be a crime if committed by a human with no meaningful human intervention. So what does that mean? If a human uses the models and says, hey, go like hack this server, right? That's a human directing the model. That's not no meaningful human intervention. But if I go into a model and I say, hey, make me rich, and it decides the way to make me rich is to hack into someone's bank account and steal it, that's no meaningful human interaction, right? That wasn't at the direction of a human to go commit the crime. And so, and there's additional caveats of it has to be reasonably foreseeable. It has to be different than what you could get via just Google or normal search. It has to be that defensive measures could have prevented it. I mean, we put a lot of caveats in there. And I actually had a lot of pushback from some of my colleagues where they said, oh, so 99 deaths is okay? It's at 100 deaths that we suddenly start carrying. And obviously that's not the intent, but the point is that these AI models are unpredictable. As you said at the start, we don't know exactly how they're working. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. And so we're willing to have, some bit of deference and range to the companies. But at some point we need to say there is a massive tail risk and we can step in here. And so a lot of the pushback on the bill has been like, oh, what does it mean to be reasonable? What is, if I do this small little thing, is that reasonable? If I do that small little thing, is that reasonable? And the two things I say are, one, first of all, the reasonableness standard has existed in courts for hundreds of years. Like, this is something courts are good at sorting out. And second of all, there's a reason we set it at 100 deaths and $1 billion in damage. It's to give you a wide range of deference. But when people are being absolutely neglectful on their safety responsibilities, we say, yeah, the state, the government has a role in stepping in.
Yeah, I think it's great because, tech companies have somehow carved out this place in our world, in our regulatory climate, where they're special, where they get like this special treatment that nobody gets. If there was OpenAI Pharmaceuticals, OpenAI Airline, like they would not be operating.
Yeah, and it's you can see the history of certain industries and how they've gone through this change, where they're not the first industry to think they're special. You think about, tobacco and how long it fought any possible regulation. And now tobacco companies engage with regulators. You think about oil and natural gas, They similarly, national security, we shouldn't get in the way of us. We need all of this. And then they took it on the chin a few too many times and now really engage with regulators. It's not to say they agree with government all the time. They lobby all the time, but they fundamentally accept that regulation can be legitimate and that they should engage in the process. And I think you have some aspects of tech that in the 90s felt that way, during the dot-com boom. Hey, we're building a whole new world. Government can't touch us. And now I think most have realized, hey, now we actually have to engage with regulation. And AI as a subset of tech is maybe going through that same process now, where they think they are totally immune and the smartest people on earth. And so rules don't apply. But we're going to find out that actually if we're all going to live together in a society, we need to be able to have conversations about everything, and that includes AI and how much it affects everyone.
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember where you were, time and place, when Governor Newsom vetoed SB 1047, but I can tell you where I was. It was like I was in my basement. I think I was getting ready to watch football, and it was like a Sunday, and it was like, oh, it's a great day, and it was like noon, and it was like, boom, Governor Newsom has vetoed SB 1047. Oof, just felt like a kick in the gut. You have a governor too who's got to sign this thing. What does that look like? And the money and power of the opposition is so formidable.
Vast.
I was stunned to see the letters that were sent in California, signed by the entire delegation, congressional delegations. This is me saying it, not you, but like signing that letter was like, I am bought and paid for by big tech. I'm not thinking about my constituents. I am, I'm in California. They're the biggest business. They own me. My words, not yours. How do we avoid this in New York?
It's a great question and something we've thought a lot about. So where the bill is, we passed it in June. Our legislative session is January to June. So we actually passed the bill before SB 53. And we had borrowed a lot of language from 1047 and early versions of SB53 and vice versa. You'll see there's a lot of text that is identical between the two bills and some of the definitions. And so once we passed it, hopefully that helped encouraging California. And now Governor Newsom signing, I think, will hopefully help in New York. The difference is in California, the governor has 30 days after a bill is passed or something like that. I think it's 30 days to sign the bill. In New York, it's 10 days excluding Sunday, but it's from when the bill is sent to the governor, not from when it passes the legislature. And the norm in New York on every bill, this is unusual, this is how every bill operates, is that we don't send it until the governor asks for it. So our legislative session is January to June, and then the governor has from June till the end of the year to make a decision on the bills. The other aspect that's unique in New York is this process called chapter amendments. So in 49 states and the federal government, and dare I say, functioning democracies, when the legislature passes a bill, the executive has three choices: signing it, vetoing it, or doing nothing, and that's either interpreted as signing or vetoing. In New York, we have this additional option called chapter amendments, which is the governor will say, I really like, A, B, C from the bill, but I don't like D, E, and F. Can we amend it?
Wow.
And we'll engage in a negotiation with the governor on changes to the bill. And if we get to an agreement, she'll sign it, but attach a memo that says, I'm signing pursuant to this agreement I've reached with the sponsors. And then early in the next session, we'll introduce those amendments and pass that as part of it. And so this is, I think, a good thing in this case, because we can now adjust pieces of it as technology increases, as SB 53 came into effect, as the EU Code of Practice comes into effect. We're going to be looking at every piece of that. And, for one example of the EU Code of Practice, it includes third-party audits. We had third-party audits in the original version of the RAISE Act. It was taken out in the end to pass it because companies said there's no way we can comply. And then they all voluntarily signed the EU Code of Practice and said they could do third-party audits. So I expect this bill will be part of the chapter amendment process with the governor. It may come out looking more like the EU Code of Practice. It may come out looking more like SB 53. It may come out looking exactly as it is. But I hope we can reach an agreement and get to something that keeps everyone safe.
Amazing. And I saw a poll of 84% support for the bill.
Yes.
What in our politics has 84% support? Nothing has 84% support, like zero.
Absolutely right. 84% of New Yorkers support it against, I think it was 8 that didn't, and the rest wanted more information. It's, it speaks to normal people just want protection from like the ravages of what could happen, right? Which is not to say there aren't potentially huge benefits from AI or that we've seen benefits from the current technology. But to run this unfettered experiment with no guardrails makes no sense.
When I was 15 years old, I decided I wanted to be a TV news reporter. There are 4 major national awards a TV news reporter can win: the Peabody, the DuPont Columbia, the National Emmy, and the National Edward R. Murrow Award. Before I was 33 years old, I had won all 4 as a local news reporter investigating Chesapeake Bay polluters.
Reporter John Sherman will accept the Peabody.
John Sherman.
But I left news in 2010 when the internet was really starting to radically change the news business. Now, algorithms dictate much of what we see, and in turn, much of what we think. That's why I am so excited today to talk to you about Ground News, the founding sponsor of the AI Risk Network and For Humanity, an AI Risk podcast. I first heard about Ground News when I noticed them sponsoring many of my favorite podcasts, but true confession, I never used the service until they approached me about sponsoring this podcast. So I tried it, and truly, I have been blown away. It is a fundamentally different way to consume news. Okay, next true confession. Before Ground News, I used to use Twitter to get all of my news from. My thought process was like, well, I'm reading the major publications and I'm reading the major writers, so, How bad could it be? It was really bad, like way worse than I thought. If you see anything often enough, it becomes normal, but these algorithms kind of lull you to sleep, and you lose your perspective. And I realized that was exactly what was happening to me. Ground news pulled back the curtain for me. Even for me, with 12 years experience working at news, it revealed things not just about the news itself, but about the way it was being covered that I wasn't really able to see. Sensationalism and bias were sneaking past my radar, and I didn't even know it. Ground news lets me compare headlines and know going in the biases of the publication, so before I ever read a word of the article, I understand the frame around it much better. So as an example, let's take the historic defeat of big tech in the US Senate when the proposed 10-year state AI law moratorium was crushed by a vote of 99-1 at 4 a.m. Ground news gives me 270 articles in one place, but then it gives me a distilled bias comparison. For me, I spend a ton of my time trying to think about how to effectively communicate with the general public about AI extinction risk. So this bias comparison shows me how the left was framing it up around environmental impacts, where the right was framing it around states' rights. That is really informative to me as I try to form my opinions and make decisions about how I'm going to communicate about AI extinction risk with the general public going forward. I also absolutely love this feature called Blind Spot. It shows you what stories are being covered super heavily by one side. These are stories in your algorithm you just might miss because you don't know they're out there. So, if you want to support the AI Risk Network, there is nothing more powerful you can do in terms of showing your support than subscribing to Ground News and using our custom code. There's a QR code right here. There's the URL right here. It's ground.news/AI risk. They will know everyone who's using that came from right here. It's incredibly important that we ring that bell a lot and get a lot of subscribers into Ground News. So please go sign up, do it. You'll be glad you did. Ground News and the AI Risk Network want to form a long-term relationship and partnership, but that depends on one thing: our viewers actually subscribing to Ground News. So I need you to go in to your phone, to your laptop, to wherever, ground.news/AI risk. Sign up. You'll be able to support the AI Risk Network tremendously and get the perspective on your news that you have been lacking. It is so important. Please do it. All right, now back to the show.
It seems to me that, like, for any politician, really on either side of the aisle, this is a 900-pound hammer waiting on the ground to just pick up. And, like, I don't understand why there are no, why political champions are so few and far between. Like, I can't think of any. Other than you, Alex, you are our champion.
Well, Senator Scott Wiener deserves a lot of praise, obviously.
That's true. Scott Wiener as well. Scott Wiener. Yep.
There are many state legislators who are working really hard on this. Monique Priestley in Vermont, Victoria Gu in Rhode Island, Barry Feingold in Massachusetts, Danny Didich in Illinois, Manny Rudnell in Colorado. Scott and I are the two that managed to pass our bills, but that might say more about our legislators than us. I mean, I think a lot of smart people are thinking about what needs to be done here. Senator Kristen Gonzalez in New York has been a great partner, along with Senator Andrew Gennardis, who's my sponsor in the Senate of the RAISE Act. So, there's more and more people who are thinking about this issue. But I'd say one other impediment to it has been presenting the issue as far too complicated. So what do I mean by that? You want to pass a bill, you'll have industry come and they'll say, well, this is so well-intentioned, but we're the experts and let's tell you how this will harm all of these things. And then it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm not an expert in that space. Let me trust the people.
It's like you're in the car mechanic shop and the mechanic's like, this is what's wrong. And you're like, well, I don't know about cars. So, all right, dude, here's the $1,200.
Exactly. And one of the reasons that failed in this case is because I have the background in it. And so I could say, well, no, like that's not actually what's going to happen. And, often the people who were coming to talk to legislators about the bill are smart people, but also didn't have an academic background in tech. They were lobbyists elsewhere or general public affairs people. And so not to take away from their ability to read and understand the subject, But perhaps there was this, if insert major lab here is telling me this is wrong, I need to believe them. When it's like, actually, that's not someone with the academic background or the expertise. That's just another human being, and you can reason with the arguments in the same way. So I think there's things that are very popular, but then experts tell you are wrong, and having people take the time to dig in and make their own decision there is important.
Yeah, it's almost like if anyone builds it, everyone dies. Let's talk for a little bit about the moment we're in, because I feel like we're in a bit of a breakthrough moment here in really good ways for people like you and I who are concerned about this stuff. Like, there has been an awareness and a rising awareness in right-wing populist media. Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, those guys are banging the drum for this, and I'm appreciative of it. Ezra Klein has shown some interest in this in the past and I think gets it. But when you have Tom Friedman and Maureen Dowd writing columns in the New York Times, I think that's something that really influences a lot of people. And we just seem to, we have the book, we have the press becoming aware. Talk about the moment we're in.
I hope it continues the way you described it. I fear about falling into that humanity's linear bias that we talked about earlier. But yes, I do think the last few months there's been this rising awareness that is a very good thing, and bringing these topics to the forefront will only lead to better policy. There's that old thing about, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight with you, then you win, right? Maybe we're moving from we're already from ignore to laugh. Maybe we're moving from laugh to fight. I think this is the sort of thing where AI infuses more and more of society faster than people expect, and people are going to talk about it more. And this is where maybe that linear bias will work in our favor, is people don't understand how fast this is coming. I mean, the number of conversations that I have where people say, well, but, they always will hallucinate facts, and so we'll never, ever be able to trust an LLM for, doing real research. It's like, what do you mean? It's used for real research all the time now. And you fact check it the same way you fact check an intern that works for you. But we're there, it'll never really replace actors, or because the video you can always tell. It's like, oh, no. And so people don't realize how quickly this scales. And I think we're going to have a number of surprises in human consciousness. I don't know exactly what the surprises are, what the moments are, but the way ChatGPT broke through in November of 2022, I think we're going to have many more of those and closer space together. And hopefully that changes people's, I wouldn't even say opinion, because I think the opinion's in the right place, but maybe their value and how important they think and how urgent action here is.
Yeah, let's talk for a little bit about the jobs piece of this, because, obviously jobs are hugely important to elected leaders. I don't think there's probably any single, on the menu of political stuff, there's probably nothing more valuable than jobs and job loss, for politicians, because nothing affects the economy, constituents more directly. We're building machines designed specifically with the stated purpose of taking every job. Yeah. That's literally what is happening. Is if you can type it on a keyboard, oh boy, you're in real trouble. This whole stuff about be an electrician, be a plumber. No, you take ChatGPT, put it in your plumbing leak, and it will diagnose what's wrong with it. And, you don't have the humanoid robot yet, but its hand is 5 times stronger than yours, and tension strength and joints and all this stuff, and could probably twist those pipes better than you. And what are we even talking about? So tell me about jobs and how you frame that up.
It's such a good point, and we are going to start seeing it very soon in ways that could be very good for our politics or could be absolutely awful. And I would rather get ahead of it than let that come to pass. But I do think that's what we are barreling towards. So first, to steelman the argument against it, because I think it's worth saying out loud, is that what we hear in state capitals and what anyone hears when they say, oh, all the jobs are going away, is, well, technology has always created more jobs than it has destroyed. Largely, that's true. It's not always for the same people. But also historically, human beings did one job for their whole life. You had one trade. And so if technology came and disrupted that trade, you would go learn one other trade and you would be good for life. But what we were barreling towards is a technology that very soon will learn faster than human beings. And so you'll be disrupted, and then you'll go try to learn the next trade, and AI will beat you to the puck and learn that trade before you. And we don't have a good answer in society for what that world looks like. Job training programs already don't have the highest success rate. It's very varied. There's some that seem to be doing really well. There are many that are not. But even if they were perfect, if AI can learn the job faster than humans, what is our answer? Maybe some piece of universal basic income, some piece of retraining, some piece of community college, some piece of thinking about how normal people can benefit from the capital side of this. I have a colleague in the New York State Senate, Michelle Hinchy, who has a proposal, and Assemblymember Harry Bronson, who have a proposal to put a tax on any company that has layoffs based on AI and use that to fund benefits or training, right? Or their proposals to, when people have licenses for something and that might be replaced, that you still require the license for the robot so that people have some equity in it, right? But all of these are nipping at the edges. There is a fundamental question that we have not answered in society. And so to the point of, jobs that will be going away, you look historically, it is not great for the politics of a country when you have sudden mass unemployment. People don't tend to then think in a very communal, empathetic, looking out for each other sort of way. They tend to turn to a much more bitter, individualized politics. And my primary concern when we're thinking about the job market is all the jobs we're going to lose. My secondary concern is, will it create a political environment that makes it impossible to solve any of the broader problems, that pushes society in a way and pushes the incentives of elected officials in a way that is more bombastic and mean and cruel? And, I'm not here to comment on any existing politics, but I do worry quite a bit about that second order effect, making the environment one where we can't solve any problems.
Yeah. And what is your timing on the jobs piece? Like, I think it's pretty commonly agreed upon that, like, it's believed AGI is around 3 years away, let's say. Could get here tomorrow. But I don't think like it being outside of 3 years is really a reasonable thing. The jobs piece probably hits much sooner than that. But so, like, is that 6 months? Is that a year? Like, when is it like AI job loss is the headline on all the news all the time?
I think news and maybe the stats will be a trailing indicator. So I think it'll happen in different places at different times, right? There will be a certain trade that is eliminated first. And even that, there'll be a bell curve in how that's distributed, right? The old phrase about the future is here, it's just unevenly distributed. You'll see some of the larger companies that can make big investments in AI doing that first, right? You already saw Walmart recently announced that they were going to grow, I forget the amount in the announcement, but keeping headcount flat. Their growth over the next few years was to, 10%, but they're not hiring any new headcount in 3 years. Amazon said they were going to lose headcount. Companies who, it's not their incentive to tell their employees to signal that they are going to not be hiring or that they might be looking at layoffs, are openly saying that that's what is coming. And I think we should take that seriously. So whether that looks like, truckers being an industry no one else goes into anymore because all that's automated, or whether it's, white collar jobs in general being automated, or where we're seeing it most acutely right now is entry level jobs. I mean,
Yeah.
Your last episode was with some younger people. They're looking at a job market where what you did for your first year, your first 3 years, now can easily be replaced by AI. But if you're not there for the first few years to learn those skills, how do you become the experts of the future? And so that's the job aspects are already here, but I don't want us to fall into a pattern where we say, oh, there's going to be a big shock and let's wait for that big shock. Like, it's happening. People are falling into unemployment. Like, we need action now.
Yeah. I mean, the whole part about sort of like no entry-level workers. It's like, if we have no entry-level worker, like that's literally what they're saying is we're not going to hire any more entry-level workers. If we have no more entry-level workers, how do we have mid-level people 5 years from now who know what they're doing, or senior people 8 years from now? Or, I mean, like the whole ladder falls apart. If you cut off the ladder, you can't climb up it. You're left with a bunch of crumpled wood on the ground. I don't know how it works.
And you're thinking about 5 years, right? My wife and I, we just had our first child 7 weeks ago. I am a new parent. Thank you. Thinking about what jobs my child is going to have, it's like science fiction at this point. Let alone all the conversations we just had about if there's going to be a world then. So, I mean, these timelines could be exceptionally short. And I think that's important to say is we need to be acting with the urgency as if they're coming in the next 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, because they could come in the next 6 months, 1 year, 3 years. But I also don't want us to fall into a place where, well, if it's 5 years or if it's 6 years or if it's 10 years, people are like, oh, everyone was wrong about that. It's never going to happen, right? It is hard to predict exactly when things will happen, but it is not as hard to predict like places where obviously things are going to end up, even if the exact route there is up in the air.
If job loss comes first, how do you put this in context with, existential risk and how, the people who won't believe existential risk will believe when their job is gone? As someone who really just wants everybody to wake up and be like, whoa, this whole thing is moving way too fast. We're not ready for it with our kids' social media. We're not ready for it with our jobs. And we are sure as hell not ready for it with this thing killing us all. Do you think that there's a possibility that the job loss jab will help out stop us from getting to the haymaker of extinction?
There's a world where that happens, and there's a world where it doesn't, where it actually infects our politics and makes it harder. I mean, we've already, again, I'm trying to stay away from being too present day political in this conversation, but I do think there's many instances where people have lost their job because of globalization or because of technological change, and they've been convinced that they lost their job because of immigration. Similar aspects could happen with AI. You could lose your job because of AI, but be convinced that it's because of some other factor. So, it's not, especially when the incentive of many of the companies is not to say that AI is what's causing it. So maybe that changes people's politics, but maybe it actually makes politics worse off. I'm sort of 50-50 on where I think that will end up going. And again, it's awful to say because we're talking about after mass layoffs. Like let's get ahead of that and let's protect that. But yes, if that were to come to pass, I do not think that is a panacea for a better politics around AI. I think it's a pretty risky proposition.
Wow. And, how about sort of social proofing with your fellow lawmakers? I think this is really an interesting thing, an important thing. We need to get to a place where elected leaders are comfortable saying, constituents, these AI models are incredibly dangerous. The makers of them are telling us they have the potential to end all life on Earth. I don't think that is something that 98% of the elected leaders in this country are comfortable saying, despite it literally being stated fact by the companies. What do we have to do to bridge this gap?
Honestly, I think there's a role for elected leaders. Trust me, I'm trying to fill it. But it's also
Appreciate
really
that.
one of it's really important to have people like you and to have writers and to have people that shape what everyone reads, because people don't really believe elected leaders, maybe for good reason. But there's always this question of why is this person saying this and what are they positioning for and all of that. And when disinterested people, or in the case of AI executives, people who are interested but in the other direction, like they'd be interested in more unfettered access, when those voices are saying, whoa, hey, we need some regulation, or, oh, this is really scary, that I think will change the culture much more than elected officials saying it. And so, I'm thankful to you and to many others who have been beating this drum for a while, because that's, ultimately elected officials generally are, but also should be quite responsive to our constituents. That's the basis of democracy, is not that we are always going to go out and just do our own thing, public opinion be damned. Certainly there are times for leadership, and I've taken hard stances that my district doesn't always agree with. But in general, democracy, politics, government is downstream of culture and public opinion. And we need to be telling the story clearly about what is happening, because there is a lot of effort and a lot of money and a lot of energy going into telling alternative stories of what's happening.
Totally. Now, my stated goal is to make AI extinction risk kitchen table conversation on every street in America. And because I think if we can't talk about it, we're sure as hell not going to solve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about with your constituents? Are you ever the one introducing it to them? Do you ever,
Totally.
How's that go?
I do a lot of appeals to authority other than me, which pains me to say as as someone who likes to look rationally at arguments and not just do appeals to authority. But I think it is often much more convincing to my constituents to say the median AI researcher puts extinction risk at 10%. Here is the statement that Sam Altman and Dario Amodei and Elon Musk and all of them have put out that say, hey, yeah, their models could produce a bioweapon. Here's a experiment that they put out where they looked at, or they convinced an AI model that it was going to be shut down, but they planted fake emails on the server showing that the experimenter was having an affair, and the model chose to blackmail the experimenter instead of let them be shut down, right? Like those appeals to authority, and then also those stories really help to sit with people. And I can say, okay, now that I've told you all of this, like, is there something we should do here? And people say, yes. And sometimes the response is, oh, and here's what I think we should do. Sometimes the response is, I don't know what we should do, but I'm glad you're there thinking about it. And like, that's great. That's part of representative democracy. But, it is the place where elected officials get in trouble in this conversation is if you make it feel like you are not listening to voters' concerns on this issue and on other issues, right? No elected official can say, the only thing I'm going to do is this issue, because there's no one issue that is everyone's top issue. And so once I've demonstrated to constituents, hey, I deeply agree with you in public safety matters and in education matters and in transportation matters, and here's what I've done in all of those realms, and here's how I'm moving things forward on the things day to day that are affecting your family, then they're much more open to like, oh, and what's this other thing you care about? Like, clearly you're someone who shares my values and is working on the right things, so that it seems like maybe I should care about this other thing too.
Do you ever get the question, because this is something I get a lot, is like, well, how's AI actually going to kill me? Like I went to the store today, I picked up my kids, and what is this software? How is this software program actually going to kill me? I get that question a lot. I bet you do. And I'm going to give you the best answer I've heard for it, because it just came recently. The great Roman Yampolsky was on Diary of a CEO podcast, and he was asked this question. The best answer, he's like, listen, how would your dog think you could kill it? What ways does your dog think you could probably kill it? And he's like, your dog probably thinks the only way you could kill it would be to bite it to death. Because that's the only way it knows how to kill something, the only reference it has for killing. It doesn't know the poisons and the weapons and the millions of other ways that a human could kill a dog. And so as we think about what would an artificial superintelligence do to us, anything we can think of, literally anything, is under the umbrella of dog bite.
I haven't heard that before. And that is quite the way to look at it. I normally go the exact opposite route, and I just say bioweapon. And people are like, oh, yeah, okay, that's terrifying. And I'm like, and that's but one,
Yeah.
But I like that description of just like the whole point is that it'll be smarter than us, and it'll come up with things that we can't comprehend.
Yeah, but I like yours too, because just going to something concrete and understandable and one word, like bioweapon, okay, like everybody gets it. So that's good too. I like that as well. All right, so let's bring it home here and talk about what's going to happen in the next couple of months as we get this RAISE Act signed into law there. What does it look like? So this happens before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year. So what is very likely to happen is that the governor will engage, her team will reach out and say, this is the feedback we've gotten. This is what we would like to, maybe change. Would you be open to this, et cetera? We'll sit down in conversation. All the labs have already sent in feedback. I'm sure they'll send in more. Then we'll see if there's a place that we can reach agreement. Of course, the governor could come back and just say, hey, no interest, I'm going to veto it. Or the governor could come back and say, it's perfect, let's sign it. But I think the more realistic option is we at least have the conversation about what we might want to change, whether we end up making those changes or not. And then, like any good student in New York, we like to wait for the very last minute for something to get done. Everyone loves a deadline. And so,
sure.
I imagine sometime around Christmas, we are at a final decision on what happens with the RAISE Act.
Wow. And do you have a gut feeling about the governor? Is there some chance it's just a cold veto? Like, no, you're out in the cold?
I think everything is possible. But I will say that the governor has been very forward-looking on artificial intelligence, both in terms of promoting innovation and in regulating its risks. So I did a little bit of a snarky thing, I have to admit to you, between you and me, which was when SB 53 was signed, which I'm very glad it was signed, right? One of the components of SB 53 was the Cal Compute cluster. It was investing in GPUs for government and academics to use to do research, to encourage it. It's a great thing. Also, okay. Gavin Newsom, in his signing memo, said the future is built in California first. And so I retweeted SB 53 is great. Congratulations to the governor. Congratulations to Scott Wiener. I'll point out that Cal Compute is a copy of Empire AI, New York's GPU cluster that Governor Hochul championed and got through in the budget last year. So actually, the future was in New York. I say all that to say that she's been very forward-looking. I mean, Empire AI, which again, New York is the Empire State. That's why it's Empire AI. It's not Empire Strikes Back. I have to clarify that for non-New York audiences. But Empire AI was a really innovative and thoughtful approach to bring industry to New York while encouraging AI safety research. And she proposed in the budget this year to have more training in AI for government employees, for people who are laid off, to help with the job training. She's also empowered the Empire State Development Corps to make direct investments in AI startups to encourage the industry in New York. So very forward-looking in innovation. And in this same budget proposal in 2025, this year, put in proposals to limit using AI for rent discrimination and for using AI for child sexual abuse material and requiring more warnings when AI leads to layoffs. And last year in the budget, she had one of the most forward-looking pushes on social media. So she's been very good at striking the balance between innovation and safety, or I would say not even just balancing, but that those things can help each other. That if you're building safe AI and keeping citizen safe,
Yeah.
you're going to have more investment in it and actually encourage it more, which is a long-winded way of saying I think she's been the best governor in the country in terms of striking that balance. And RAISE Act is very much in line with that balance of requiring basic safety in a way that actually encourages innovation going forward. So I'm optimistic.
I like it. And I think there's something really in there. It's like, even if you're super bullish on innovation in AI, let's say you're 80 points bullish on innovation in AI, it would be ridiculous not to protect your bullish investment with 20 points in safety.
Yep.
Just a balanced portfolio would make sense to anybody. Your tail risk on your investment needs attention. It's an obvious tail risk.
I do this by analogy of, I am pro-nuclear power. I know that sometimes splits people, but, put yourself in the mindset of someone who is. But imagine someone came to you and said, hey, we want to build more nuclear power. And you said, okay, here's the regulatory structure. Here's where you can cite it. Here's where you need approval. Here's the safety plans. And their response was, no. I want to build it wherever I want, whenever I want. And you were like,
yeah.
Well, no, you're dealing with splitting an atom. There's going to be some safety precautions. You're like, we're encouraging it, but we have to do it safely. And their response was, no. But if you don't let me do it wherever I want, then China will. And you'd be like, you need some medication. This is not a rational statement. And yet that is so close to the argument that we are getting from some in industry. Not all, some are being productive, but there's definitely voices out there that are very much the just let me do whatever, wherever I want, in a way that in any other context, people would laugh at.
Yeah. All right. Alex, take us out. We always like to end on something optimistic. You are a new father. What is it that makes you most hopeful as we look at this really challenging future? What makes you hopeful?
Well, what makes me the happiest is my son is probably a week or two away from smiling for the first time, and I'm just going to melt when that happens. But in terms of what makes me optimistic on this topic, it's that these conversations are happening and there's power in your hands, right? Reach out to your legislator, reach out to your governor, reach out to your congress member. People want to actually hear from you. If you live in New York, I'd encourage you to go to passraiseact.com, and we make it very easy for you to email the governor and tell her about why she should take action to sign this bill. And if you don't live in New York, but you work in AI or otherwise have a connection to it, reach out to my office. My email is boresa, BORESA, @nyassembly.gov. And we'd love to help you with a one-page write-up or something else that tells the story as to why this will help everyone. What makes me optimistic is that people are doing that, and elected leaders are listening. And so this is not the time to be fatalistic or nihilistic. We have power in our hands. We just need everyone to use it.
I love it. Thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you for coming on, Alex. We are in a world with not nearly enough political champions of this cause. And so I'm so glad to meet you and to see the example you're setting. And I hope that many others follow after you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So what do you all think? Please let me know in the comments. Can we count on the states to step up where the feds have stepped back? All right, a few notes on the AI Risk Network. We are hitting some really exciting milestones. We just passed more than 250,000 subscribers on YouTube, 4 million total video views on YouTube, and we are rapidly approaching 30,000 watch hours per month, which means that every single day, more than 1,000 hours of AI Risk Network content is being watched on YouTube. Incredibly exciting. Thank you so much for your support. Please consider a donation if you want to see us spread our work. There is a link in the show notes. All right, my friends, please remember, AI risk is not someone else's problem. It is yours and it is mine. And there is no way we are going to allow a few thousand people to wipe the other 8 billion of us off the face of the earth. No way. For humanity, I'm John Sherman. I'll see you very soon.